Hello, internet, lovely internet. My name's John Kulas. I've noticed that I tend to reposition myself every time I start. I don't know if that's a affectation, what that is. Anyway, my name's John Kulas. I have a weird habit when we start these streams, apparently, that I've just noticed. But I'm a 20-year professor of industrial and organizational psychology. I'm a 10-year user of probably more than that, but been saying 10-year user of R for normal statistical applications, and for the last 7 or 8 years, I've also been using R to wrap projects such that the communication of the statistical results is all wrapped within the same project platform. And so, fully executing projects within R is kind of something that I've been working into my workflow and work processes for the last 7 or 8 years. And so, this weekly live stream is just, I guess, maybe a celebration of that or an opportunity to expand that way of working with R. And we are hoping to be a resource for other people that might want to do this but aren't sure where to get started, or maybe you're working on a project and run into an obstacle, or maybe you just want someone to bounce some ideas off of. So every week we hold these what we're calling open office hours. That's what OO stands for. I should come up with a uh, second meaning for the acronym, right? Because OO, it could be kind of cool, I guess. But open office hours is what it is intended to stand for or represent. And so we're taking the metaphor of just an academic type office hour where the professor or some resources, graduate students, people who maybe have some experience with the subject matter are available. And if other people want to pop by and ask questions, then we encourage that. So there are so many static resources available on YouTube, but we wanted to do this in a more interactive kind of format to show some of the trials and tribulations, the successes and the failures of problem solving your way through this stuff, because it can be discouraging. Uh, it's funny, I just got out of a class and I'm trying to just expose some undergraduate students to the option of kind of structuring work in a manner like this. And it just the little silly errors that you first encounter in R, and we've all encountered them when using R as a statistical platform. They're so discouraging and deflating early on, and through experience, it's said that there's a steep learning curve. A big part of that is just learning how to read and interpret and find meaning in the errors that you undoubtedly throw. And another big part of that, and I'm guessing people that might stumble across this are already aware of this, but the other big obstacle is just not being discouraged by the actual encountering of an error. Errors are good, mistakes are good. That's how we learn the best, is to find out that something that you wanted to work doesn't work. And most people with persistence can overcome why whatever reason it's not working, and you learn from that, and then next time you can avoid that error. So we love errors. And boy, I'm rambling, aren't I? Anyway, every week we just kind of hang out here and make ourselves available to other people that might be interested in leveraging R as an authoring platform. Now, Quarto, the authoring system that we've been working with um, almost exclusively, we still have the opportunity and sometimes use the old R Markdown products. I've been calling it an ecosystem because there's a separate package for each product that you're trying to produce, whether that be a website with blog down, or a book with book down, or an academic poster with poster down. We've mostly been using Quarto, and Quarto is encompassing and amenable to different programming languages. So the statistical aspect of it, you don't need to use R. You can use whatever your preferred programming language is. But the wrapping and the communication part of it is agnostic to any sort of statistical platform. So we've been using Quarto primarily, and so Every week we've been exploring a new feature of primarily Quarto because I mentioned if I have 7 or 8 years of experience using R to author, the majority of that 6 or 7 years, so 80% or so of that time, has been spent using those R Markdown products. Um, but Quarto, this relatively newer platform, we've been, and when I say we, I sometimes have collaborators that pop by and join and help problem solve. But we've been exploring different features of this platform each week. And so uh, the last few weeks, but I I don't regret, but I'm really starting to kind of have one of those heavy sighs when I think about the daunting task ahead of us for what we've chosen to tackle here. So every week we find a feature that we're not quite so familiar with, and we play with it, and we try to test the boundaries of it and see how it works and how to use it. Not as experts, but as people that are just coming into the system and kind of learning it new. And so, last few weeks, what we've been focused on is replicating an existing syllabus for a class, a university class, but we've been trying to do it via Typist, this newer, if Quarto is new, Typist is newer. It's a newer authoring language and system that produces PDFs that doesn't require the specification of tech. And tech is the historical typesetting language that's used to produce PDFs. So Typist is quicker, it's faster, it doesn't require the intermediate step of creating tech script. And so Typist is also new, very new, and it's being developed outside of Quarto. Quarto is supporting Typist is probably one of the better ways to put it, I think. And so Typist is currently making advancements. Quarto is, and the Posit team that creates and supports and provides Quarto is very open to including enhancements and additions and features of Typist that might be being tested out or might be uh, currently being developed outside of Quarto, and they're great about trying to accommodate those. But it's very, very new, and it's at very early stages of development. And so we're really encountering more so than any other feature I think that I've explored, trying to um, see what kind of things we can do using just staying entirely within R, trying to author. Boy, the boundaries and the limitations of the typist capabilities within Quarto specifically, whoo, it's been it, it's it's been a challenge. It's been the most challenging, I would say, task that we've given ourselves. But so we've done that the last few weeks, and we're going to continue to do it today, and probably do at least one more week on it. I'm hoping just one more week on it because it's probably not that fun for other people to watch. If it's not that fun for me to struggle through it, it can't be all that much fun to sit there and watch. I can't believe, unless you're a sadist. So any sadists out there, or or you enjoy Schadenfreude, uh, that that's an interesting study right there. What's technically is the difference between Schadenfreude and sadism? Is Schadenfreude maybe is just specific to misery as a construct that other people experience, whereas sadism might include things like physical pain. Here we go. You can tell I've been a professor for 20 years. When you get older as a professor, you go off on these tangents, and when about half of your class is sleeping, that's an indication that maybe you've drifted a little too far on a topic. And doubly not good because I have another tight deadline tonight. I have another tight timeline tonight, so we're gonna have to call this really close to the top of the hour. So let me close my rambling by saying that because we're exploring these features in an open-ended exploratory manner, each week we do a recap and try to try to represent what we learned last week in a more linear, structured, more digestible for learning format. And so that's what we'll do right now, if I can find my transition.
Last time, as you undoubtedly recall, Boris and Natasha popped up disguised as Mojave Max, a grizzled old prospector, and his sidekick, Death Valley Dottie. But what's even worse, our hero's train has started to leave without them.
Hey!
Why are they gone without us, Rock?
I'm sure I don't know.
Well, we do, don't we? For there in the cab of the locomotive was Captain Peter Peachfuzz, who naturally had pushed the wrong lever.
The brake, Chauncey. Where's the brake?
Is this it?
Good heavens, Edgar, we can't stop. We'll keep going forever.
No, I figure we'll stop in Albuquerque.
Why?
There's a big stone wall at the end of the tracks.
Meanwhile, Rocky and Bullwinkle were still chasing desperately after the last car.
Wait up!
You can't go without me. I got a ticket.
Albuquerque has to be the most famous cartoon city, right? I would think. Oh, by the way, this is going to be bad. I read that, or I've been inundated with information about the toxicity of plastics. And so I have a habit of just refilling old plastic water bottles and drinking from them. And I don't know, I've done that for a long, long time. And so with the visual thought of just like little microplastics slowly filling me up, I've been trying to wean myself from there. So I have now a cup of water with ice in it. The mistake is ice. And I have a nasty habit. You don't want to go have dinner with me because I chew ice. It's horrible. I shouldn't be doing it. But with a microphone right here, I have to be very conscious of that and try to avoid chewing ice because there's nothing that's got to be about the worst thing that any of you could experience other than trying to reconstruct a syllabus via Typist. That's the most disgusting thing you could try to do. The second most disgusting thing would be somebody chewing ice into a microphone on the internet. So we took it upon ourselves to use a syllabus as the structure we're trying to replicate, just to test our ability to make Typist do what we want it to do. We've already made Quarto do what we want it to do because the syllabus itself was authored via Quarto, the standard traditional way. And so if you hit that hyperlink, you'll go to a previous week's. By the way, the slides are always listed in the comments here. Comment or chat. I don't know if there's a technical difference, but on my end, I see it say comment. So the slides are listed there. If you follow, there's a lot of hyperlinked information. It's not always visibly, there's not always a visual cue on the link. So sometimes you'll just have to play with the content on the slide and see if your cursor changes from a pointer to a finger. That's an indication that that something is interactable. The syllabus here on the left is a syllabus that I'm currently using for a class. And it has a bunch of components on it that we decided was complex enough that we should try to see if we can replicate it via Typist. And the specification, the Quarto standard PDF specification that created that syllabus on the left is on the right-hand pane here. Other than these code chunk ticks, you should be able to copy that and paste it and replicate. There are some packages. There are some LaTeX packages that are needed. Those should be automatically, those should actually load automatically. The LaTeX package use operates a little different than the standard R package use that many of us are used to. So the specifications aren't, I didn't get too fancy in terms of the actual layout of this. I used Markdown tables for what you're seeing here next to the nice lady's chalk over here. There's a little bit of Quarto syntax or Markdown syntax that's supported by Quarto that says how I want the information distributed within that table. I disabled wheel scroll on this week's slides, but not on this previous slide that I'm linking to here. We have a different, I'll get to that in a second, I guess. But there's again, you can go ahead and kind of scroll through here and download it if you want, a larger picture of it. But you can see the elements on here that we're trying to actually replicate. And what we did last week was we decided that this is a big enough. It shouldn't be that epic of a task or kind of goal that we set for ourselves, but it turns out that it was quite a bit to bite off and try to chew. And so we decided to just kind of take one piece at a time. And so last week, what we did was we focused on the tables and the citations. So we tried to get the tables in a format that was exactly the same as the format that's specified in the syllabus itself as currently rendered using LaTeX specifications. And we also wanted to get our citations to render exactly like they look in the PDF rendering, LaTeX rendering of this syllabus. And so last week, we were able to successfully find a CSL file on the Zotero citation style site. There's a link there that this blue will take you right to the CSL file. And then indicate that we're interested in using that by putting a CSL field within our YAML specification of this document that we're rendering here. There's a 1 in parentheses here just because I had a couple of them in this project folder. And then we also did not want this citation to be appended at the back of the document. This isn't a normal article. It's not a book. It's a syllabus. If I'm referencing a text, I want the students to go buy the text, which they don't, by the way. They don't buy it. So we don't need it at the very end of the document. So the suppress bibliography is an option that works with different types of formats that we're trying to render within Quarto. However, the CSL file itself, as well as the biography suppression, was not something that was going to be operative unless we had an additional line of code here in our YAML, and that additional line of code was this cite proc true. So the citation processing, I believe, is what cite proc is short for. And so a little bit of digging, with a little bit of digging, we found that Typist is actually a bit unique in terms of the types of products that we're trying to create via Quarto, and that the citation processing by default is done by Typist itself. Again, this outside of Quarto platform, authoring platform, that has its own scripting, it has its own support structure, it has its own community, but Quarto is supporting. So by default, the Typist citation processing is actually going to occur. And so the suppression of the bibliography and the application of the CSL file that we've identified, downloaded, put in our project folder, and wanted to actually use, it wasn't effective until we had this cite proc true option. So if you want to learn a little more about that, again, hit that hyperlink, the performed by hyperlink. It'll take you to a little better explanation. Needless to say, that wasn't a big deal. That's a typical easy type problem solved doing this kind of stuff. It's once you find that, if you document it, remember what happened at some point in 1 year from now, 2 years from now, when you're trying to do something else, that's one of those things that'll kind of stick with you after it doesn't produce what you want it to produce for a few renderings. Then you say, oh, that's right, I remember there was this extra step. And so for different programs, we used to call this sort of command a light switch command, and that's just simply this other stuff isn't going to work until we turn this on. So you got to make sure to actually complement what we wanted to do with the style of citation, as well as the suppression of it at the very end of the document, we had to actually add this little bit of this very small code snippet here in the YAML, and then it worked just fine. With regard to the tables, so the tables we were really struggling with 2 weeks ago, and the support pages that we saw that were saying this is how you get tables like what you would want to see in Typist. This is how you ask for them. Most of the suggestions that we were coming across were recommending the GT table. And so we used the GT table to render something really, really close at the end of last session. And that really, really close is presented there on the left with a little red arrow pointing to it. And it sounds silly, but what we were really focused on was, again, we were trying to exactly replicate what the rendering looked like in the standard PDF. We wanted a solid line above and a solid line below and no intermediate lines. And again, not hugely important, but as we're trying to figure out how to use Typist, we wanted to be sticklers on that. So the GT package got us close enough where we decided that we can take this, further extend it, and get a bottom line on the table, which sure, it's fine. You can actually do that. We just need an extra bit of code on this chunk here between line 27 and 31. And using that tab underscore style option within the GT package as a modification to the table, that's something that works really well. We can actually say we can say what we want to happen and where we want it to happen. So we can put lines wherever we want them. We can color them however we want. And that gets us to almost looking like what we want. Now, today, what we're going to do, initially what we were going to do today was we were just going to finish up on those tables and then see what else we can cross off our list of little bits, little bites of slowly working toward building a full syllabus. However, I did stumble across this week because I've been doing a lot more actually, exploration into how to do what we're trying to do between these Typist sessions, because first week we tried to do it just free field like we normally do, just kind of, I'm not sure, let's all work on it together. It's just nothing was working. So I figured if we're gonna really try to replicate this syllabus, it's got to be frustrating to watch, even on double speed, I would imagine. So I've been doing a little more background exploration, trying to get us strategies that are going to be hopefully effective. And even though the GT package has a lot of support in terms of recommendations for working within this Typist format, I did see that Tiny Table it looks like the scripting is a lot more efficient, and it looks like it's going to be more flexible to specifically what we're trying to do. And so there's hyperlinks in here as well. We're not going to have time tonight to do Papaja, but Papaja works great as well. So Papaja is giving us pretty much a default table that looks like what we want it, that looks like how it looked on the syllabus, and that's simply a solid horizontal bar on top, nothing in between, and a solid horizontal bar on the bottom. There's probably a technical term for those, but I'm not sure what it is. So Papaja gives us that as well. I was surprised because Papaja, my experience with it is it's great for PDF output, but there's latex specification, and Typist not requiring the latex or text specifications. I was surprised that it worked so smoothly, but it did. Everything Papaja just works great typically. But so I'm not going to spend time on that because I want to finish up tables today. And I think in order to do that, we're going to take a look at Tiny Table. Now, we're going to have an issue with some of these other ones. In particular, emojis are fine within Typist, but Typist is not by nature going to help us out with, it's going to want to produce monochromatic, I shouldn't say monochromatic, that's not right, black and white. It's going to produce black and white emojis, so it's going to take away the color from it, kind of like a vampire. So we can think of Typist as the vampire to emojis. Sucks all the blood right out of them. So that's, if we'll try to do a little bit of that today, maybe at least see what we get by just by default. And then next, it'll bleed into next, no pun intended, I guess, with a vampire metaphor. But it'll bleed into next week in terms of seeing if we can inject some color into these emojis that by nature are going to print as non-colorful emojis. We can get them. They're not going to look colorful unless we do something to them. So we'll finish up the tables, at least the early tables in the syllabus, and I'm going to do that through Tiny Table, and we'll see how nice that is. There's been some recent additions and recent updates to Tiny Table that make this particularly just wonderful for what we're trying to do, and specifically the type of table that we're trying to produce. Call out blocks, we can try this tonight as well. I believe that should be fairly straightforward. We should just be able to use standard Quarto syntactic structure to get those. Margin content I have not tried yet, so I think we'll try that again tonight. Again, what we are trying to replicate, and if you're navigating these, it's a little different than typical for me, because when I've been having these long code blocks, the scroll wheel on your mouse, I usually have that to navigate slides, but it gets messy once we get to these code blocks, and then the slides start jumping all around. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and download this so we have it as a reference. And so this is the syllabus that we're trying to replicate. The font is a very easy tweak in Typist. We can just specify main font. Now that I look at this, the title is actually in a different font, so we're going to have to, that'll be something we'll have to take a look at. That's not something that I anticipated playing with, but the rest of it, I believe, is Times New Roman. It looks like Times New Roman. The required text came up like we want it to in terms of that APA CV CSL file that we found. What we didn't quite finish last week that we're going to finish tonight is this. Let's do our table. So I'm going to actually copy. I'm going to copy the code that I have in this chunk here, because this code should replicate what we actually did last week, and then we'll be starting from the same point. And I think what I want to do is I want to change that GT object. I want to actually do a tiny tables object instead of GT. So I have a project folder. This weekly session. That we've been having, and keep advocating when playing with these, when working on projects, to do it within project folders. The nicest thing about project folders is you have everything in the same space, so you don't have to worry about full identifying location of where things are. As long as they're in the project folder, you can just call them up. And those of you that have had issues with data and identifying where data is, especially if you're on different machines, that's obviated. It's not a concern if you keep everything in a project folder. And so this is already getting very messy just because we've done so many. This is the third or fourth week that we've actually tried this. I am going to do a new file. I actually just want an empty file. So I could do that here in terms of create empty document, and I think I will. I'm going to overwrite that empty file with my pasting of the slides information. Now, one thing, and we'll have to spend some week on this as well. One thing that I've been doing on the slides is when I try to present an entire QMD, an entire RMD, it's a mixture of Markdown, like words and explanation, and code analyses. And so the code chunks are identified by 3 ticks. three ticks for the purposes of the presentation are problematic. So I have not yet spent any time trying to figure out a workaround to that other than altering. And so there is a workaround. There has to be a workaround. And one of these weeks, maybe we'll spend some time finding that workaround so I can start using it when I do things like share QMDs with people. But so there's a slight alteration that we have to make here, which is those three ticks. The CSL file is already here in my project directory. And again, that's one of the beauties of working in a project directly. I don't have to say folder, folder, folder. Where is it? I can just call the file out, especially with students. That is one of the biggest issues that we tend to run into. We've been cavalier with our naming of these files, which we shouldn't be. Robin, I think I looked outdoors and saw a robin last week, and that's why it's called that, which is the stupidest reason ever to name a file. But I'm going to call it by the date since we've done a few of these. And so we should have a PDF pop up, if this works, that represents how far we got last week. And yeah, this looks like what you saw on the slides this week. Now, what we were going to do is we were going to take this table and further tweak it with this GT class. Or class is the object with this GT command. I'm actually going to recommend using a different package. And so we're not going to use GT. We're going to use tidy tables. And the other thing I did this weekend is I finally updated my base R as well as my R Studio, and you know how that goes. The general U. So it's just I'm struggling a bit. I'm struggling here with this, but I don't have all my packages yet. There's a couple of solutions that you can do to salvage packages from that you were using before. I actually usually take it as an opportunity to kind of clear out my libraries a little bit and only install them if it's something that I actively need. So this is something that I did look at it. I promise I looked at it, but it must have been before I installed R in R Studio. So what we have here is we have the content of my table, the information that I want to be in there. It's just when the class is, who am I, how do you get a hold of me, with of course a intentionally misspelled email address such that I have an excuse when the students are trying to get a hold of me and I can say, I never got anything. That's just a joke. I don't do that. Actually, I like doing these weekly open office hours. Let's get together and try to get something to work. I also like working with students on kind of problem solving projects. Problem solving in general, I've always, I don't know, I've always really had fun with that. If you see me looking off screen, I have a little bit of code in terms of what I've already looked into. Let's look at Papaja just to see what it actually looks like. And I probably don't have Papaja installed either, but we'll see. And so again, the shorthand notation, if you don't want to load the library but you have it, is just use this double colon notation. I sometimes use that just for quick and easy. Actually, the one that I use the most frequently is when I have data is I use the DESCR package, the freak function, because I'm a freak. But this will give a frequency distribution, and it works great regardless of the structure of the object that you're trying to distribute. The base R histogram function is really picky in terms of types of objects that it'll give you a histogram for. So I use DESCR all the time. Let's see if we have Papaja loaded. I'm guessing I don't. Oftentimes, What? There's no pack. Did I spell tidy? No, it's not plural, is it? Tidy table. Um, I thought we just installed it. Didn't we just install tidy table? This might be another one of those weeks. Like, what the heck is going on? There we go. So that looks about the same. It's the difference here that you see with the, and it popped up over here. The difference that you're seeing with the Pavajot table, it looks very similar to the GT table, but I'm getting by default a label for that table. Otherwise, it looks pretty much the same. It's at the same stage that the GT table was in terms of us trying to get to, um, where the heck is, did we lose the syllabus again? I need to find a much better way of keeping all these tabs in order. So this is the syllabus that we're trying to replicate. The difference again is there's call up here. So we just gave we gave placeholder names to our column headings, and we need to get rid of those. And then we need to put a line at the bottom as well. Now the package that it does everything that we actually want it to do is tidy table, and so the tidy table specification is just TT, and so we'll just do the standard one first. Now okay, so there is something kind of funny going on with my installation of R Studio and R. I'm not sure what's going. It might just be that I'm not all that familiar with updates and changes, but I am getting some behavior that I'm not used to actually seeing, which is always discomforting. And again, they know what they're doing. It's probably just me, not them. But we'll exit out and come back in and see what's going on. It doesn't like TT, but TT should be the function. What am I doing wrong here? Am I calling tidy table wrong? Maybe it's not tidy table. Tiny! Not tidy. Tiny table. Oh my goodness. So I probably don't have that loaded either. Oh, I guess I do. Did I say on this week's slides, do I say tiny table or tidy table? Because that's I have been making so many mistakes. I think I'm ready for the retirement home. Just take me now. Just give me I did call it tiny table, I guess. Okay. Maybe I got a few years left. So you can read about tiny table there if you're interested in it. R is never wrong. It's always right. So it said, Kulas, what are you doing? There's no TT, and there is no TT because I loaded the wrong doggone package. Now this is okay. Now this is something that that I was experiencing as well with some packages as they interact with Typist. For some reason, it doesn't like the use of my email domain in there. If we change this to HTML, we'll see that it shouldn't have an issue with that. No R rendering products seem to have a problem with that in the body of the document that you're working with. Now, this isn't a code chunk, but it's encompassed within quotes. It should be fine. To deal with it right now, I'm just going to put some ticks around it, and that should actually take care of it. The formatting will look a little different, but it should take care of it. Render's fine within HTML. I'm going to switch that back to Typist, and see if that gets us a rendering. There we go. Now, again, just bear with me for a second on the actual rendering of that because that's a separate issue. Again, the typist specifications have been so incredibly challenging because they're not functions that seem to be operative within HTML, for example. That's kind of my default. Does it work here? Before seeing what it looks like and how it operates separately. Um, Typist has been very, very finicky. Now, the thing that I would like to do is I would like to. It looks similar. Now, there's spacing issues, so we're gonna have to handle that. Font, we're not gonna worry about right now. Spacing and also the actual breadth of this. So in the syllabus, we're trying to replicate the width of the table is the entire printed page, and again, there's a level of specification to that within the normal scripting because I have information in the right hand column. But for now, we want to get rid of the call one, call two. We don't need that. We don't want that. And we also want to expand this. So I'm going to do that. Um, let's do that one by one so we can see how that operates with with tiny. There's too many packages. I'm glad there are so many packages, but there probably are just are too many packages. I'm thinking. Um, Let me see here. So the if we were to follow the tiny table link in terms of specification of the tiny table and how to get it to look like what we want it to look like, one of the really efficient commands that we can use within this specification of the table here is just we can tweak it with width. And so the width, this is actually a newer issue that's been filed and actually worked with. I'm going to put a hyperlink in the chat if I can find the chat. I swear, I spend half the time on these Tuesday sessions just looking for the right window. So that issue, if you actually follow it, if you're interested, kind of walks through people that were doing something similar with tiny tables, and the tiny table authors addressed the issue and made a just fantastic solution. And that fantastic solution is just a slight modification to the specification of the TT object, where we can actually include column information that add to one. So one is the printable space on the page, and fractions of one are going to operate on our table such that it's going to give us, let's just see an example. So if I do a 0.2, we have two columns. If I do a 0.25 and a 0.25, my expectation is that, and it keeps popping up over here. My expectation is that this entire table is going to take up 50% of the printable space. This is already in the middle, but it'll be shrunk a little bit. It looks to me like the left and the right are maybe that is 20% or so. It's not going to be a lot different. So let's see if we could really shrink it. So let's do a 0.2 and 0.2. And so now this entire table is only going to take up 40% of that printable lateral space. And we want to tweak these numbers with respect to that value of 1. And that look at we're getting overprinting on the code bit that we know is problematic. So it did shrink it. What we want to do is we want to expand it. And so you can play with that number 1 all kinds of different ways. For us, if we look at the original file, what I want to do, why does it keep disappearing? Am I exiting out of it? It actually is 25 and 75 in terms of column 1, column 2, because I have that scripted that way, so I know exactly what those numbers are. So we can try 2575, which add to 1. So the expectation is it's going to take up the entire printable space there. And there we go. So how easy is that? I mean, that's, again, it's not exactly what we want, but it's very, very close. What I do want is I want to get rid of these column headings. I don't need them. A couple of different ways to do that. I should be able to do that by just doing call names. I should be able to do call names. You see, I'm going to look and see how I did it last time. I lost that file too. Let's just try it. So we'll try call names, class. I'm going to set that to null. And so the class object is all this information here. The class literally means class I'm teaching. And that works great. So this is exactly what we want, other than, I guess, a couple of things. One is the spacing, which I think we'll come to next week. We got 10 minutes left. I can't believe how much time I waste just talking. I'm not a talker, but apparently there's something about you guys. You guys are making me talk. We have the required text. Let's do a call out. So let's see if we can do the call outs. What those look like. So we have the required text. We have another required text. And I just copied this from the syllabus, which is always messy because copying from a PDF, there's always weird issues. So what I'm doing here is I'm just getting rid of hard line breaks. It's the content we're interested in. There's no hyperlinks here. So this should be fairly easy. I'm going to use the fenced specification. Dot callout, and that's a, what was it? Type of callout. Well, there's 5 default types of callouts. Important? I don't remember that. Is there? I did it and I don't remember that. So how bad is that? Let's see here. I'm gonna go to a page that you can probably see I've been to probably a million times, call out blocks. Oh, it isn't important. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. And I'm just looking for the specification of it. It looks like it's probably dash important. I don't see it explicitly, but that's the format of these. So let's try call out important. Sometimes spacing gets funny, so I'm going to give it some extra space just in case. The closing fence we'll do here. We'll cross our fingers, and our hope is that we get an actual as wide as the content. Look at that. That's fantastic. Okay, so callouts are going to be easy. The rendering is different, isn't it? It's not as pretty. There we go. See what I mean? So this is, if we want to exactly replicate this doggone syllabus, which we're going to do. Like, if it kills me, we're going to exactly replicate this. This to me looks just like a font issue. And this is actually, that is hyperlink. Oops. I don't know if I should be showing that or not. I'm already getting in trouble at this university. I might as well just, it's amazing. I just like walk on campus and I get in trouble. It's something about me. It's not the university, it's me. But there is a hyperlink here, so let's try a hyperlink in here as well. I'm going to put the actual hyperlink. It does look like it might be a font difference, a different font specification. However, there is, and again, we're getting really, this is really picky, but the point of this is, again, to kind of test the boundaries of this Typist system to see if we can replicate exactly like how we have, what we want, what it looks like. And so this left-hand edge of the callout block is different. I have a solid line around. The color looks similar. It's a little deeper, which I don't mind. I kind of like that actually. But the exclamation point is definitely different. So we could spend time, I don't know. We'll see if I get, so I don't always look and see how popular these weekly sessions are that aren't intended to show how to do anything. They're intended to, hey, we're here. If you want to pop by and ask a question, ask a question. Um, but sometimes there'll be 7 people that see it. Sometimes there's 50, 60 people that take a look. Um, so if if I gauge that the interest in this is just like, all right, we've had enough of this, we won't try to replicate exactly this left hand ledge and the exclamation point here that I'm looking at that are a little bit different. However, if there are more than 7, 9, 11 people that are watching by the time I take a look at this, then I think we probably will, because it is one of the silly little things that we're trying to do here to help us learn about these new formats. Just trying to do little things like that. It again, it's frustrating, but it all goes into a corpus of knowledge, and it's really helpful. The hyperlink should be standard, so it's just square brackets, and then in parentheses adjacent to that, the URL. We'll see. Now there might be, I'm not sure how that renders in the print. Now it looks to me like it's hidden. So I didn't throw any errors, but by default, the specification that we're getting in this document is upon hover, you're actually getting this yellow highlighting. And it's funny, it doesn't, there's a line break, and it's not picking up the entire hyperlinked phrase when I hover based on the line. That's unexpected as well. All of this is new. Typist is new, but we can click on that and it's operative, so it actually works. So I'll consider that a win. And since we're closing in here on the amount of time, so I guess we got our table. Which is great. That not tidy tables, but tiny tables package is fantastic for what we want to do for this format. I will show you what emojis look like, because that's the other thing that we were going to actually work on. Now I use a package that was authored by Hadley Wickham, that I'm guessing not a lot of people use, because you don't need to anymore. So there's a lot of support in these platforms for different ways of using emojis. I like to use Hadley's old, I'm not even sure if it's supported anymore or not, package. It's called Emo. It's only available on GitHub. I probably don't have it installed because I don't have anything installed. Oh, I do have it installed. Okay. Of course, the important stuff I actually went ahead and installed. Now there's a YAML specification that we might need to incorporate here in order for that to come through, and I think that's from, I don't, off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember. All right, I mean, I might need to look into that one a little bit. So so the emoji specifications, we're gonna have to work on a little bit. And again, the reason that we're doing that, there's our cat emoji and the HTML. The reason that we're doing that is only because some idiot professor decided that on his syllabus he's going to put a bunch of emojis. A little stupid, I don't even know what is that thing. It's like a little microscope thingy. I'm a psychologist, I don't know microscopes. So it's looking at something. Must have thought I was cute at the time. Now that we're trying to replicate it, there's a cat laughing face. And again, it's silly. This one's going to, jeez, this might be another 2 weeks. So here I have emojis in a table. This table, other than the emojis, we should be able to replicate pretty easily. Although there's a little LaTeX here with the arrow specification. So there is an arrow. Let's try to do, I need to get out of here, but I'm curious. Since we did tables, let's see if we can do this one. I'm only going to replicate the first couple of lines. Um, and let's add, I'm going to get rid of this. We'll tackle that next week. I'm going to add a code chunk here, and I'm going to construct this the same way that we constructed the previous one, which is not efficient at all. Normally, I would probably identify this in a CSV file if I wanted to change it at some point later, and then I call it up from within the uh, project directory. But we can, you can just create a grade object, and I'm going to say concatenate that. It's two. We'll just do 2 rows. How about that? Then you have a percent, and here's where next week we're gonna have to tweak it a little bit. So we're gonna have to figure out how to get that latex specification in there. And I'm guessing it's not gonna be something that is intuitive, I'm guessing, so I'm not even gonna try it. So, and we're gonna have to change the column heading here too, because there's a space. What kind of professor uses spaces? These poor kids. If I saw students use spacing, I mean, as a it's a variable here. On the table. It's not technically a variable, but if I saw students use space in the variable names, it wouldn't be my favorite if you did that. So we'll pull this together. This is a grades object, and we'll do it as a data frame just because that tiny table seems to be accommodating for all kinds of different object types. But typing and talking is not my forte. Let's see what that looks like just as a TT tiny table by itself. Now in a previous code chunk I have the tiny tables library loaded, so I'm not going to do that again on this code chunk. Again, what we're trying to replicate, if I find it, it has this kind of smaller. Now this is smaller, so we do want it smaller. This previous one, we wanted it to span the entire breadth. This one, what did it look like? So now why is it doing that? So we're using the same function, but it looks, oh, we're in an HTML file. Coolas, what is wrong with you? Okay, so the expectation is it's gonna, I mean, the content looks pretty good. I should set these as global options so we don't have to do it per chunk, but we don't need the echoing. There you see, it's actually rendering through pretty good, and that double dash is rendering as an M dash, I believe those are called. So we might be okay, even though I gotta go. I'm very curious. So let's do a quick. I'm gonna change. That's our third column. Let's change that to what we want, just to see if we can get a little further. And I'm very tempted to put some LaTeX in here just to. I don't think it's gonna work. And then just to demonstrate, because it's so nice and easy, our options. Even though we don't want this, we'll come back and change this. Let's get this the entire length of the breadth of the document. So it should span the whole thing now. This LaTeX, I think we're gonna have to play with the line 56 specification in order for that LaTeX to be recognized. Or we may have to go back to Papaja as a table. because it is something that's actually possible there. I really don't think it's gonna like that. Sometimes sometimes double double backslashes will actually work. I didn't even read the error. I'm just assuming that that's it. Uh, bad bad form. Should actually read the error. Look at that. It might be. Contrasts. What contrasts are we doing? Let's see. Didn't like our width on that one, apparently. So that looks pretty good. Let's let's tweak width just a little tiny bit. Um, See if we can get it. We got our class points to render like we want it to. Did I not use? Maybe I didn't use the right syntax there. This is kind of a newer package for me. I love it. Like I have used it before. I don't remember the exact context of it. I might have just had like a weird comma period thing going on or something. Yeah, I must have just had a kind of odd period comma transposition or something. Now, if we're fully trying to replicate, where where is I think I've lost. There it is. Jeez. If we're fully trying to replicate this, that looks like I don't know. It looks like it's roughly 50% of the page width. Honestly, the default looked fine, so I think for our purposes of replication, we'll just leave it. And so next week, we'll put more content in next week. If there's more than 9 people that end up watching this, first of all, if there's more than 9 people that watch this, say hello. Like drop a note, say, hey, thanks for doing. I don't say thanks, but say, hey, I see what you're doing. Um, and get, the main point is give some feedback on whether we should quibble over things like exclamation points and red bars on the left of this call out block or not. But then the other thing I'll do is I'll see if I can get figure out a way other than using Papaja, because Papaja might be our solution here. LaTeX specifications are really easy within Papaja. There's a built-in command that says I want to use this or I don't. But we'll see if we can actually get that into the tiny tables format, because we did tiny tables here. I love it. Love how it looks. And getting tiny tables here, I mean, we might as well just use the same package and structure. There's no real need to do that, but let's see if we can figure that out. Okay, cool. So yay, more progress. We at least got the callout block knocked out, even though we see that the default formatting is a little different. The highlighting in terms of indicating that this is clickable, that it's a hyperlink, that's something, that's another small thing that I'm going to take a look at. And so we'll tweak next week. I don't, I'm a little fearful that I'm the only person that cares about this stuff. So I don't know if it's worth other people's time, but as long as I don't have any complaints about it, I think we'll actually do it. So that's the plan. So next week we'll keep going on this. One more week of the syllabus, and we're gonna. It's now that I kind of see it here, it's slowly getting there. I didn't paste all the other word-based content, but that's a very easy cut and paste that should fill in here quite easily. We're slowly getting there. There are some small differences just by default rendering that we can quibble about and try to tweak once we get everything in there. So I think maybe that's what we'll do, is we'll get everything structured the way we want and then decide whether it's worth the time to spend an extra week, because I'm really getting sick of Typist already, but see if it's time to spend an extra week to do little minor things like the identification of highlighting and the way in which the exclamation point is rendered. So we'll get everything in first, and then we'll see if we want to do that. All right, thanks everybody. Good night.